Kimberly, you guys are still on mute, just so you know.
Sorry, thank you.
Doing introductions.
Michelle Williams, Deputy Director, Fiscal Manager, COIC.
Russell Wallace, President, Chief Standard.
Patrick Curran, COIC Loan Officer.
Megan Tuck, Community Economic Development Program Coordinator, CRC.
And back here,
Patrick Jordan, lead teacher, Bend and Lapine, COIC Education Program.
Chris Schofield, Youth Education Manager for COIC.
And then online, why don't we start with you, Christy?
I can go ahead and go
Christy.
first then.
Sure, go
Gabriel
ahead.
Solis, Manager City Councilor.
And Christy?
I think I'm online now. Christy
yeah.
Abbey, I'm Metolius City Councilor, coming to you from the League of Oregon Cities meeting.
Thank you, Counselor.
Yeah. And Andrew Scott.
Yes, hello. I'm the Director of Residential Services at JBRJ Youth Programs.
And Mr. Bonington, you want to introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Tom Bonington. I'm the new Chief Business Officer for JBRJ Youth Services.
Great. Okay. So our first agenda item is a service story. I think we're going to turn it over to Patrick and Christy.
Oh, it's not gonna work.
That's all squirrel. Very good. Sure, put me in the corner, I see.
Yeah.
You want to do the poll?
I tried and that's what it, for some reason, Jim is kicking it to screensaver instead of the PowerPoint for some reason, sorry.
Okay, well, we will roll ahead. I'm Chris Schofield, Youth Education Manager. This is Patrick Jordan, Lead Teacher, COIC Youth Education. And it's our pleasure to be here tonight just to tell you a little bit about our youth education programs. And then Patrick has a special story about one of our alumni for you. So we have these three groups of programs under the youth education umbrella. We run the accredited high school at the juvenile jail. We have 3 COIC alternative high school locations, and we partner with Youth Challenge, the military school out Highway 20. That is a cooperation between the National Guard, the state, and us. We provide the licensed teaching staff for Youth Challenge. This first slide has some images from the juvenile jail. We have 2 full-time staff at the juvenile jail. And this is the first year that the incarcerated youth have had a garden. And that comes from grant funding. This was their first harvest. It's a secure outdoor area at the juvenile jail where the students can go daily and tend the plants and do the sprinkler system and all kinds of things. And it's really been a nice addition. The youth haven't had a secure outdoor area for many years at the juvenile jail. So this is a big change and a nice improvement. These are our 3 COIC alternative high schools in Bend, Redmond, and Lapine. We have 8 full-time COIC staff spread between those locations. And each of the programs is really tailored to the community they serve. They have unique features based on the needs of their population. These are some images from our spring graduation at Pilot View Middle School. And these are graduates from all 3 of our locations, Bend, Redmond, and Lapine. And on the far side is our crew that is youth education and some youth employment staff. They all pitched in to put on a very festive graduation for our Bend, Redmond, and Lapine alternative high school students. And some of these students have earned GEDs and some of them have earned diplomas.
Some both.
Yeah, thank you. Here's a little bit of data from our alternative high school programs. Now, we're only in October, just barely, so this data is just since July 1. We have 106 students enrolled so far between those three programs. And we have administered 214 GED ready practice tests since the school year started. And the practice tests are an indicator of how close they are or how far they are away from passing the GED. And so they study curriculum and they prepare and they take a practice test. And then you decide, well, should I do the real test, which is a little more expensive? Do I have a good chance of passing or should I keep studying? So that's kind of where we are on that. This image is from the National Guard Youth Challenge program out Highway 20. We have 8 full-time licensed staff out at Youth Challenge. And Youth Challenge takes in 180 students every 6 months. It's a large program. And there are about 35 of these programs across the United States. They're run by the National Guard and the state that they're in. This is a free public alternative high school for residents of Oregon. And most of these students are not from our county. But we always have some every class that are. But I would say out of 180, we may get 15 from Deschutes County, but the rest of them are from all around the state. And it is a quasi-military program where the students stay for 22 weeks. It's residential. And then a new class comes in after this one exits. And Patrick is going to jump in with a story about this very special student that Patrick and I both taught in Redmond long ago.
That's right. So as Chris mentioned, we had every spring we have graduation, and we combine our 3 referral-based high schools to come together and celebrate the accomplishments of our students. And this year we were fortunate enough to have a former student from our Redmond school, Leah Hankey, 2016 COIC graduate, came and addressed our current crop of graduates, and she did an incredible job. She shared her personal story, which I'll just touch on briefly. And it really was pretty inspiring for our current students to just kind of illustrate, listen, enjoy this moment, but there's a lot that you could still do and accomplish. When I first met Leah, she'd already lived a life beyond her years. Like so many of our students, her life was not easy. She'd overcome a lot of challenges and was in the process of dealing with pretty significant challenges at the time that we met her as a super senior at COIC in the Redmond School. She was living in her car. She was homeless. She was really sober, and then sliding back into a pretty severe drug addiction. And all that came after, and she had spent a lot of her early high school years sacrificing her own best interests. This fly loves me. Her own best interest to take care of, and fly swatter, I see. She sacrificed her own education to take care of her mother, who was chronically ill, and that was part of how she got behind. I'm really trying to be serious. But by the time we got to know her, she was really not just behind in academics. She was doubting herself and her abilities, And yet she still felt that pull to make something out of her life. And thankfully, she came into our lives because, you know, you could tell instantly, not only is she incredibly intelligent, like a wicked sense of humor, but she needed help. And thankfully, we were able to be that kind of calm in the storm for her. I believe she was gonna be successful anyway, but we were able to be part of her journey, allow her the grace and flexibility really for her was key. We had numerous exits and re-enrollments. It's just really hard to attend consistently when you're trying to, you know, get odd jobs here and there to try to, you know, get gas money, get to school and all the things that she was trying to do. And the addiction issue that she struggled with, really made her situation a lot more tenuous. And it was one of the highlights of my my educational career, the day that she graduated and went on to COCC, earned her transfer degree, went to Portland State. And actually 2 or 3 days after she spoke at our graduation this spring, she spoke at her own graduation in Portland State for her master's in school social work degree. And now she's gonna be paying it all forward, helping out youth that are facing similar challenges to her own and making the world better. And her story is special to us, but it's just one of the stories of our students, the ways their lives are changed by their own determination, their work ethic, and the opportunity presented by COIC in the education program, but really couldn't happen without the support of communities like ours that decide to lift these students up. And just want to thank you for doing that for them.
Thank you, Patrick. So looking ahead, we hope to increase our enrollments and increase the number of GEDs and credits awarded to our youth. We want to strengthen our community partnerships and offer more mentoring opportunities. We collaborate with youth employment, and through both of our programs, we would like to expand our economic and academic supports for youth. So those are kind of things that we are looking ahead for. So thank you very much for all your support of the youth education program.
Thanks for all the work that you guys do.
I would love for this board to get an invite to the graduation for this next year for 26. That would be awesome.
You're invited and we'll make it formal.
Okay, awesome. And then to the degree that maybe they could join for the graduations here at the fairgrounds for OICP.
Yeah.
They're always looking for, so if anyone is interested in seeing the Youth Challenge graduation, I know some of you have been to it. It is incredibly moving. And to know that you are part of that team that's making that happen is pretty powerful. So we'll be sure to put those in your packets, but if that works for all of you, we'll make sure that you have the invite too.
It's just a couple of questions. Yeah. Couple of questions. Didn't COIC a long time ago have an alternative school in Brandon?
We do, and now what we provide is the youth training and employment piece. And we are in Pioneer, so we have a really close alignment with their alternative high school there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The other thing that you sort of blew by, you said that the GED tests cost money to take.
Yes.
One, I guess, how much, and two, why? If it's part of our school education system, why are these kids, I'm assuming it's kids and young adults, being charged when my kids don't have a fee?
So, our students are not being charged, we pay for them. But there is a fee for, the GED practice test, it's almost $7 now for each individual subject test. We do enough bulk business, we get a bit of a discount, so we try to be fiscally conservative with that, right, Michelle? And And then for the official GED test, it's $44 every subject test they take. If they have to retake, it's discounted to $10. But with the amount of students that we have on that track, those costs do add up. We were fortunate to be awarded a 2-year wraparound grant for this next biennium. So part of what we get from that will help offset our costs for the testing. But we, for better part of 15 years, have COIC has taken on all those costs for our students, and we've spent, I don't even want to add it all up. I mean, well, we spend a lot of money making sure that education's not gonna cost our students. That's so.
Again, I guess I'm kind of confused.
So as to why it costs money?
Well, yeah, I guess, because are with this program, is it not, can it not be a part of the state funded K-12 program that, you know, per student, everybody gets $9,000? If, you know, if COIC can't qualify, then are you connected somehow to the ESD that they can collect the money and give it to you? It just seems odd that we're charging youth $44 or whatever to take a test. And again, my kids, you know, didn't cost them to go to school and get their high school diploma. So I'm just confused.
Yeah, so the students aren't, just to clarify, the students and the families of COIC schools are not paying any of it. The reason it costs money is that Pearson VUE is a for-profit testing company and they're in charge of the GED. So wherever those tests are happening, someone's paying. We just absorb that cost for our students. So, our students face enough economic
Yeah, okay,
hardship.
so, but does COIC get any money from the state to offset?
Like a school district might.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'll tell you how, so we are a private alternative, school, and so every year ODE, we go through the registration process. As that, we work in partnership with districts, and so every student that say, what we have is school in Prineville, when Cook County would send us a student, we would get 80% of the school state funding to work with that student. Cook County would keep 20%, and we would make do with that.
So you're like the charter school, right?
Yeah, except they get 90%. Maybe we might be talking to you later about like, let's see if we could.
Well,
Now we're down to.
So
Yeah.
that list of things on the future is that we may want to be diversifying the way in which we seek and serve. And the reason for that is that we have a number of occasions where a student may come to us because their brother or their cousin were successful and they'd really like to be part of the program. They're a non-traditional learner. They may have trauma when they step onto a campus. There may have been some, bullying, who knows what. And unless the district says that, yes, we believe that you are the best fit, then that student is required to go to their home school, and we are not allowed to have that student. Even though the district is allowed to keep the 20% and we can offset that. Though what's happening with our districts is that they want to be able now to do more on their own and have more offerings, more online, non-traditional hours, those sorts of things. That's wonderful, but there will still be students that are going to say, I don't care what you do. I'm not stepping back on a campus. I don't want to be with the school. I want to be with COIC. And for those students, we want to find a pathway to be able to say, can you please let us have those students? You still keep 20%. Let us not have someone fall through the cracks, because we know that those students are going to say, fine, if I can't go here, I'm not going at all. So then our next step is, well, can we have the dropout list then? How about the ones that have dropped out? So they said, so they didn't want to go back, and now we can catch them there. And some of the districts are saying, well, maybe. Redmond has said yes. So we cold call students and say, have we got an idea for you? Are you feeling like you want to finish your education? We see you, we want you. I mean, Dustin at our Redmond program is fantastic. And so there's just some dynamics there that we may want to explore to make sure that one student that doesn't get served because we can't find a space to serve them to where they are going to feel comfortable feels like a failure in terms of the assets that we have as a resource. So that's on the horizon for the next year of how do we work with our districts to make sure that we are exploring all those opportunities. in partnership, not in competition.
Well, schools around the state right now, being on the Culver School Board for almost 8 years now. We're seeing student enrollment drop, you know, and Culver's getting hit pretty hard right now because we don't have an alternative school. We don't have an online school. We're too small to be able to afford a lot of that. So we actually see students leaving to go to either Madras' alternative school or whatever. And so we're along with a lot of other districts in the state right now, declining student enrollment is really hitting the budgets hard.
Sure.
And so, yes, there is resistance to give up the dollar amount that comes with each student for different programs, but you know, but you still want the best for each kid that's out there.
Yeah.
So it's a weird dynamic right now. Things are a struggle, but we've got to be able to figure it out. So do you guys have an online option? Do you guys have?
Not exactly an online option now. I joke around with the new families, just that we were a hybrid before it was pandemically required and it was cool, and then it was hated, and now it's like vilified, but we were always that because our students, most of the time they come to us partly because consistent attendance is a huge challenge, and you know, whether it's, you know, transportation, you know, childcare at home falls to the student, or just like health and, you know, different things at home. And so we kind of operate very individualized, which is nice in those situations, because, you know, if a student has to miss for a bit, you know, they're not necessarily punished, it just slows them down and we can, you know, catch them back up. I will say that we're thinking about ways to maybe expand. That's like part of like, what is the need? Like, where's the need? How could we serve the communities in our region, you know, that. And I will say that we get very rarely, but we get a couple Culver referrals to our Redmond school. And so, you know, I think we have maybe two finished last year, and I think we have one right now. Dustin takes very good care of them. And in that way, it's a student that still has a foothold in Culver, but is getting service that they weren't, you know, going to be getting somewhere else. So instead of cutting ties entirely, they still have that connection. And if they finish their diploma, they're a Culver graduate. And so we know it's a small pool, but you know, if there's any students there that need our support, we would be happy to serve them. So,
Absolutely.
Well, thank you both.
thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Great job.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have anybody here for public comment tonight that wants to speak directly to the board about any issue? Don't hear anybody in the room. Is there anybody online that wanted to make some comments?
Yeah, I would like to if I have a minute.
Sure. So, I mean, generally speaking, we kind of try to keep it to 3 minutes max. So if you can kind of, I'll watch that for you, but just because we have a full agenda, we need to work our way through. So
I'll try to stretch it to 3 minutes.
okay, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, first of all, I'm very new to the community here, although I've worked with JBarJ for over a decade as a federal project officer. Being new here to the community, it's been kind of eating from a fire hose as it is. Everybody has been extremely helpful and very wonderful in this community, which I very much appreciate. But one of the things I've seen, having been around the country working on homelessness, I'm kind of wonder if we could maybe set up something where more maybe elected or leadership could come together to create some sort of a work group to work on direct processes to help end homelessness in the community, addressed it directly. Some of the processes I'm seeing, and I could be, I'm new, I may be misreading it, but some of them seem to be duplication or disconnected, which seems like there's money going out the door that could be better served. So I was just curious if there's some way to put something like that together.
You wanna?
I feel like.
So executive committee, you're channeling, we were having a discussion, kind of a, before this meeting started about something like this probably, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, so Tom, I would just say that it's as though you were the actual fly in the room.
Yeah, right.
We do have a fly in the room.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the conversation that we had. And so there is that space. So the Regional Housing Council, which is established to bring electeds together. There may be other opportunities, and I'd love to learn from you if there are also ways in which you've seen other communities come together that looks different than what we currently have. But definitely that's of interest to the membership here, and making sure that our electeds, who are the ones who can really advocate and share amongst themselves in our state and federal delegation about what the needs are. So thank you for raising that. It's almost verbatim what we were talking about. So I'll send you $20. Thanks for well timed.
Okay, well, thank you. Can I reach out, Tammy, to you to, maybe help connect to the group and see what's going on?
You bet. I will send you the invite right now. How's that? It's open and we even have a meal, so come hungry.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in Washington State this week, but I'll be back.
Okay, all right. So our next meeting is the 27th of October. That's the
Okay.
Regional Housing Council. And I don't know right now that JBarJ has a member on the Regional Housing Council. So it was one of the discussions when we met with Stephanie as well. So you all might want to decide who you want to send. Bring everyone. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but you might want to identify someone that just becomes one of the regulars.
I would love to be on that.
Excellent. Okay.
Thanks for joining us tonight, Tom.
Thank you, guys.
Anybody else for comment? Okay. So next we have consent agenda. I'm gonna ask that we do approval of minutes as a separate agenda item first, just because I need to abstain from that one. So I wasn't there at the last one. So can I get a motion for approval of minutes?
Don't move.
Second. Okay, all those in favor?
I,
I should have asked anybody have any changes to Reddit. No, okay, and I'm abstaining. And then let's do the fiscal reports and the department reports as one motion.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the fiscal reports for August and the department reports for September 2025. All those in favor?
I,
Any opposed or abstained? Great, okay. Good.
I'll just take a moment to acknowledge, there's lots of great information in here.
Thank you.
As I say, it's always been a good survey of what's going on across the organization. I cross paths with probably about half of this stuff, and then you hear about the other half, so it's just good to see that full report.
Thank you. And I also received some feedback that you all are inundated with lots of stuff. And so if we can bullet the reports from departments, it might be easier rather than a narrative, unless it comes with an interpretive dance, of which we haven't started implementing. So you'll notice that some of the Bob's working on it. And so thank you for that feedback. And so as you see these, we're evolving, but if there are other, it's too much information, it's not enough, it's missing something, please just let us know. These are for you. And they're meant to, okay, I can just go back to the packet, pull it up online. Somebody asked me a question, I remember it was in there. That's the value that we're hoping to add.
So on the departmental reports,
Yes.
on the natural resource and resilience stuff,
Yes.
with the flat fire and all that other stuff, my memory says that a 4 years ago, Deschutes County Forest Service, or Deschutes National Forests, and some other partners got up to almost 20 million bucks for some sort of fire resiliency project from South Bend all the way up to Lake Billy Chinook. I guess I'm kind of wondering, because I don't remember seeing a sort of a summary of where we are in the years of that project and where the money's gone, where the projects are. But I wonder with like the flat fire, which is in that area of concern, If any dollars that are left or being planned to be spent are now gonna shift from fire resiliency, fire prevention to more of a rehab, working with landowners and that kind of stuff and doing some sort of fire restoration.
So we are doing that work with the Oregon Conservation Corps, the OCC funding that came out of Senate Bill 762. I'm not familiar with a federal grant that did a lot of fuels mitigation work through us. So was it a grant that was?
I don't know that it was through you, but I think
Okay.
COIC was one of the dozens of partners.
Okay.
Seemed like Scott was heavily
Okay.
involved in.
I don't know, so let me find out. Yeah, go ahead.
So there were so in the Critter Branch area, there were mitigation efforts. And I'm gonna mess up which one was which, but the Forest Service was doing one portion along one edge of Critter Branch. BLM was doing, another section on the other side, and so they were doing mitigation efforts under the grant. It could be the same one you're talking about. I don't know if the flat fire affected the proposed area that they were going to be mitigating. And if it did, I don't know if they would go into restoration efforts or they would just move to another area along the ranch rim that for more mitigation. They might move the scope of work. So I'm not sure about that, but I do know that BLM and Forest Service both have been doing projects out there.
I think also Deschutes, Water and Soil Conservation does have funding for private land that was impacted. And they'll help with like.
Yeah,
seeding
talked to
and
them.
things like that, yeah.
He's been our advisor on all things in that arena, which is good. So let me find out a bit more information. Michelle, let's put you on the spot. I know, is that
I don't
okay? Okay,
remember any federal funding.
Okay, and that's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all right. We'll find out.
That's fine.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
And it might have been a combination of the 367 money and some federal dollars. Cause the landscape did go from like north of Lapine, the west side of Bend, west side of Redmond, clear up to Lake Billy Chinook was the target area that they were doing everything from thinnings. And I thought the youth corps stuff was a part of that project where they were helping like landowners do fire safe landscapes around houses, structures.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if the projects I'm talking about are the same.
Yeah, I mean, tracing it back to which dollars from which projects,
Yeah.
somebody will know.
Yeah.
Our forest or.
I'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all gone at the moment, so you
Yeah.
fortunately, I
So,
Just all the federal,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, happy to
Leave
do
a
that.
message to fight back.
In 1 week, sorry.
And we do work very closely with Heart of Oregon too, so as we can't use chainsaws, they can, so it's a lovely, they cut, we drag, so, yeah, sort of inland.
Any other questions about the report? Okay, let's move on to the Title VI policy. I think, Michelle.
Okay, do you want a drum roll?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, so there were a few things in your packet, and there was actually a separate attachment to sitting out there. So small packet. So thank you again for bringing forward the concerns and the suggestions for the Title VI policy. So we did work with our FTA representatives and with our legal counsel to get it reviewed. Get some suggested changes, and so this is what I'm bringing back to you. So the objectives is what was in question for the plan. The FTA requires we have objectives A, B, and D, which if you look at the first red line version. Those objectives were changed slightly to match exactly word for word what the FTA uses as their example. So we changed those, and we have to have those. We can't make any changes to those. But for the objectives C and E, We don't have to really have those. They were just added extra. So we're bringing back 3 different options for the board to consider. The first one is, we just have the 3 mandatory objectives and we leave it at that. The second option was adding in, E. And I tried to take the language of our conversation that we had at the last board meeting, and that's kind of where E came up with 2 different ways of saying it. So E on the second option is align ourselves with the goals and intentions of the Title VI policy and requirements, ensuring that we are in compliance with Federal Transit Administration rules and guidelines. And again, we don't have to have that, or we can. And then the third option is E would say the primary objective of this Title VI policy is to ensure that we are following and in compliance with the Title VI rules and guidelines as per the Federal Transit Administration regulations. Other than that, there were just some things that I changed. We had missed adding sisters into the cities and the counties. And it was still Jefferson County for the title, being over the Title VI thresholds, and actually it changed to Deschutes County, so I updated that. And then we were at Jefferson County's ODOT review this last week. And the reviewer there suggested 2 more changes to the plan that you haven't seen yet, because I just got that review on Tuesday. If you look at the last page of that little handout, they suggest in yellow that we call out the non-discrimination complaint procedures are for Title VI and ADA. And then they want to add in here disability in yellow on 3B.
That's coming from where again? From Jefferson County?
So Jefferson County had their ODOT review on Tuesday, and RLS is the contractor for ODOT for all things transportation. And those were their recommendations of the changes we needed to bring forward. Again, recommendations, they didn't really change anything substantial to the plan, so.
So I wasn't at the discussion last time, but I don't really know much about the substance of it. My reaction to these was if we're gonna include E, that we make it as simple as possible, and I thought I was suggesting that the second option that includes E, but just have it say ensure we are in compliance with Federal Transit Administration rules and guidelines. Just the simplest language I can see from everything that was proposed here, and seems kind of the most evergreen, if you will. Like, you wouldn't have to worry about changing in the future, so.
And that was our discussion last time, it's like, hey, how about we just make this real concise reference what we have to? That's how we got here. It's like,
I mean, I'm assuming the whole purpose of this is to be in compliance with the.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I don't even know why it's needed, frankly, but if we're gonna include it, I suggest we keep the language as simple as possible. There are people that feel strongly we need to include it, since the purpose of this is to be in compliance. There are reasons people wanted to add that bullet.
If I remember, it was intended to replace everything, if everything else was stricken. A statement that said, we're just gonna align with the FTE guidelines for Title VI. And so it appears, if I'm understanding it correctly, that A, B, and D are all that is required at this stage.
Yeah, so we can't take A, B, and D out.
Right.
And only have a 1 objective. We have to have those 3 as a minimum.
Yeah, and I had thought, Representative, Solis was suggesting that we strike everything, or maybe not strike everything, but just make a statement that we're in compliance with Title VI and be done with it, but now knowing that we have to leave A, B, and D, it does appear that anything in E might be redundant and unnecessary.
I
As
would
simple
agree
as
with
it may
that.
be. Okay. Was that an accurate representation of the conversation? How
Yeah.
we came up with, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I believe that was exactly it. That for some of these kind of things, we discussed at some length that we don't want to go above and beyond that requirement. So we'll do as little and as cleanly as we can, without adding a whole bunch of extra that's unnecessary. And so I would agree with his statement that if A, B, and D are required, let's go with that and scratch everything else and call it a day.
Yeah, the items in question have already been redlined out of any of the options, and so I don't know that there's a need to have E included.
I would agree with that.
Probably the same conversation holds true then for what ODOT representative suggested as added words to the other deal. If they want to see the words, well, have the words in there.
I think every reviewer that looks at the plan until we get it adopted is gonna wanna try to add something in, honestly.
That's their signature.
I've moved, we adopt something tonight.
Yeah.
Can I ask one other question before we have a motion? I'm just curious about the phrase, the low income populations, and why there's not been a discussion about leaving that in, even if it's just putting it in B. I don't know if we can add something to B. I don't know if we're allowed to or not, but I'm just a little surprised that that's not retaining in here because that seems to be an important part of who our CET service serves.
So that was the phrases that were called into question by this board last month, with it being too specific, and how can we make it more general?
And I've always said, I wanna provide a premier transportation option for anybody and everybody, so why call it out like that? I mean, this is for anybody.
Sure, but it sort of ensures that you're paying attention to that particular part of the population. Since it is sort of, like, to me, it seems foundational to we're primarily serving within a significant way now. So why would we have it in here? I don't know the legal.
The concern in the conversation at the last meeting was that the more descriptive we make it, we run the risk of becoming exclusionary by well, you didn't include this person, but you did include this. And so the recommendation was just to simply strip it
To the minimum.
to just use the fewest number of nouns to get through to the end of the day and go from there.
Well, and to go along with your point, we can keep it in here as, yes, this is a focus we need to maintain, but if we put things in black and white as the state and federal government maybe changes what they consider low income, or you never know how that definition is gonna get used and changed over time, and then we might be beholden to something that we might or be required to do extra that we might have not signed up for. And so just trying to stay out of that muddy water a little bit. But making sure that in other places it does have, as our core goal or whatever, that, we are focusing.
I was the one that raised question to this, and the specific question was the reference in the now stricken. What was D and is now C, the minority population, so by calling out race. My question was, is it in direct conflict with Title VI, which specifically excludes race from being part of the decision-making process? And so it happened to be in the same sentence as or low income populations, and so I think the low income populations, by the way it was previously written, was being included in the same statement. And so my question was specific to how the description of minority population could be in compliance with Title VI.
So Michelle, can you help me figure out how do I figure out what versions are what? So this
Yeah.
memo that you gave us tonight,
Yep,
I have 3 versions of it.
So
correct.
I mean, that's just for, we as a board want to include this new one that we're adding. Right, so first version is without it, and then there's 2 options.
And I was just trying to make sure we look at the same one to
Yeah.
function. When you're looking at the second version.
The second version, it starts to include the new bullet, and then the third version has a different version of the third bullet.
But all of these are acceptable for submissions, right?
Everything that's been brought forward to the board is acceptable to the FTA. It will be in compliance. It's just a matter of, do you wanna go with the minimum? Do you wanna add sprinkles? Do you want confectioner's sugar on there?
Yeah.
What do you guys wanna see in there?
Whipped
I think option one is what you have to have. That's your vanilla cake. Everything else is
It
added
sounds
on.
like that's where people wanted to go last time, I'm hearing.
Vanilla cake is delicious, so that's where my vote's gonna be, is gonna be option one. The bare minimum that's required.
In order vanilla ice cream.
Like black coffee.
Yeah. It does allow us the opportunity to stay out of any challenges that might be at the federal level in the language in which we use. It does not change who we are, how we operate at all.
Do we have a motion for the first one? Is that kind of where we're going?
I would make that motion that we approve option one of the Title VI objectives and plan as presented.
And that contains just the 3 objectives as amended.
Correct.
Second for that?
I was second that.
Okay, any further discussion of it?
Well, I'm gonna go ahead, so we only vote once.
Yeah.
And move to amend that main motion by adding on the back page, those 2 additions, the word disability and the title ADA, title 4-6 ADA stuff.
And Gabe, you have that amendment?
I have not seen the particular document. It sounds like you guys have a different document than I have in the packet, so
Just another
if the
page.
board would like, I can rescind my motion so that we can go with somebody else making the motion. But because I haven't seen it, I'm not comfortable amending mine.
Okay, you want to make that motion, Tim?
Sure, I'll move that we adopt option 1 of A, B, and C. And then include the additional on page 8 words that are required by ODOT compliance.
That's 2 that are highlighted in yellow, when
Yeah.
you're the 2 parts that are highlighted in.
Plus the updates that I made to add sisters
Yeah.
and, change Jefferson County to choose.
Sweep it all up, get rid of the edits.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's a, John, you second that?
Second, yes.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? Great.
Thank you. Thank you for your extra work on that.
Okay, Patrick, your time to talk about the USDA.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be here. This one's been on my plate for a while. Glad to bring it here today. So, we've had a revolving loan fund from the USDA. It's called the Intermediary Reasoning Program, where we borrow money from, USDA, I see, it's USDA. Where we borrow money, we pay it back at a fantastically low interest rate of 1% a year. I think our payment's about $80,000 a year that we pay.
About a little over 100,000 for 2 loans.
And the reason I'm here today is that, so I've been here for 5 years. And until the loan that I'm bringing today, I've not been able to find a loan to fund this program. Okay. In the past, the way that we had 3 people in the loan department, and we had an organization called Oregon Business Development Corp, which basically ran SBA 504, which is real estate loans, through another entity that with another board, but it was involved with COIC. And they were able to utilize this program, and this program could be utilized if it's in partnership with the banks, which could make sense, but that's been difficult to find until recently possibly. But the issue has been this, is that it got so slow that they had to go to the USDA and say, we can't even find any borrowers around here that are making sense with your qualifying guidelines. That we actually ended up in Lake County, and we have a loan currently on the coast with Newport Ace Hardware. So we really had to kind of go out of our geographic area just to kind of roll this program, keep it going. So the big thing I run into is this, is that they have a requirement that if we lend directly, this is going to be mostly for new businesses or smaller businesses, that they require 25% equity investment. That's a huge hurdle for any new business. My EDA program, it's 20%, and that could even be a little bit less for a new business, and it's 10% for an existing business. But the USDA requires a 25% equity investment, and this has just been I want to say a thorn in my side in our ability to fund through this program. So what I'm proposing today to bring to the board is that we pay off our loan to the USDA. And effectively, by paying off that loan, I've got another loan that I'm presenting tonight that will use some of these funds. But we basically free up over $600,000 that I would be able to deploy into all the communities, which would be, really, really good. All our loan programs have different qualifiers, restrictions. In the past, maybe on the EDA, I've talked about Davis-Bacon prevailing wage. And now that has been an issue in me being able to do tenant improvement loans in the private sector. The USDA doesn't have that requirement. Interesting, right? Still a federal program, doesn't have that requirement. So by freeing up this capital, I'm able to, I guess, utilize funds where they're best needed. And that's why I'm presenting this today. So can I field any questions as I'm throwing this out your way?
Patrick, I do have a question.
Yeah,
So, but
just they would want to know, are there any unintended consequences with this that they might want to be apprised of?
no, it's none. There are none.
Okay.
And what I did is this: I started this last year, thinking we were going to get to this point. I reached out to the USDA and I said, "Well, what happens? We pay off your loan. Can we still get another loan? I mean, if we apply for the IRP program again, it's fine, certainly." So there's no restriction there, and that's important to know that the capability of applying for a USDA IRP funding mechanism is still available to us if we decide we need that in the future, or we need more money in the future, and that would be another way to access my capital. So
Okay.
there's no downside there.
Counselor Solis,
Yes.
your question.
Yeah, so Patrick, just for my own brain and to be sure I heard you right, we essentially have this loan. It's got a great interest rate as far as what we're paying USDA for it, 1%. It's great. I would typically be opposed to paying that off early just because we're making more money with money sitting in the bank account. But you're saying, if I'm understanding right, that you can't use these funds to loan out into the community because of the high restrictions regarding the equity. And so your desire would be to not make the interest money, which is anywhere from 3 to 5%, depending on COIC's investment strategies. And instead redirect those funds to where they can be utilized in the communities. Is that an accurate assessment?
Okay, so all funds that aren't being lent out, are sitting in some kind of mechanism where they're gaining interest. So nothing changes there. The whole idea is that we want to get loans out there to businesses and into the communities. And this is a way that will allow us to get there faster.
Right. So this money that we currently have that is not being
Yes.
lent out is currently sitting in an account gaining interest. We're earning money on this as it is. It's just not usable for us to lend out because of that high equity limit. And so
Correct.
we're foregoing that interest earnings, which is anywhere from 3 to 4% higher than what we're paying in interest on it. But the purpose behind that is so that we can actually use money to lend out to various startups and businesses in the communities and see a return there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
So to follow that line of thinking, is the interest earned on this account restricted in spending just like the money you borrowed is restricted? Or can you take the interest earned and put it to your other investment programs without that 25% restriction?
Okay, I'll try to answer this one. So, by releasing these funds from this restriction, we could put it into another fund or create a fund on its own.
But I think he's asking, does it create unrestricted funding to the degree that you would be drawing in the interest of the money sitting in the bank if we did not make this change. Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
but still, if it's $1 million.
Yeah.
And at 3% interest, it's earning $30,000 a year.
Right.
And you're required to pay $10,000.
Okay.
So COIC had a plus side of $20,000.
Right.
Is that $20,000 unrestricted? Can you spend it in
No,
your
it-
loan programs
Yes.
any way you want, or is it still restricted to the same rules of the $1 million?
Yeah, it's restricted to the same rules as
So-
the loan program.
So you can,
So if the interest earned funnels back into the program and follows the program rules.
Very good. Great
Thank
question. Great question.
But this is basically a cash secured loan, correct? So we have the funds on hand.
Yes.
That are used to secure the money that we get from the USDA to make the loans that now have the restriction. So by paying off the loan, we're freeing up the cash for us to use within the other programs without the restriction. So we'd still be making, we could sit in the exact same account.
Yes.
Earning interest, we just wouldn't have we wouldn't have to pay the VIG, basically. We would have the oversight that we have to pay for the USDA's 1% model.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
And it's not the one, it's really not, the 1%'s not the issue.
Right, no, I get
Like
that, right.
have an opportunity now to serve more people in a way that I can.
Is the appetite there for these dollars?
Pardon me?
Is the appetite there for these dollars to get pushed out?
It varies. I mean, I gotta tell you, in the rural communities, I'm gonna say that, being that they're smaller, you have less demand, less qualifying, especially with this huge restriction. In my vision, I see us working this without the restriction, but I also see us being able to potentially do some of these smaller tenant improvement
that's
projects that the
exactly what I'm
EDA
going.
can't do, so it offers the flexibility to move money. Yeah.
I would wanna make sure that if we're removing the restriction, that the mission isn't changing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would
I absolutely agree.
remind us all of two things. One, that we've had discussions before about wanting to just move more of these dollars back into the community. And
Yeah.
this is helping us generally move in that direction. Seems like the right step as long as we have the cash available to make the payoff, which I'm assuming you do. So,
I just wanna make sure that we're not losing.
and then to the rural focus, I think that's something that came up in the conversation preparing for tonight, that Tammy asked us to consider is, do we want to retain the rural focus with these dollars? And that seems reasonable to me. I don't know exactly how we articulate that. Maybe Patrick comes back to us with some kind of policy statement that we approve in the future.
And I think what we wanna make sure is that we don't let go of the intent that these dollars
Yeah.
are meant to be for
Exactly.
rural areas. And that, just putting it out there, that the dollars don't all of a sudden just go to Bend and Redmond. And now we call it macaroni because we've got the dollars out the door. So we're balancing that internally and wanna just make sure we don't lose that piece to the puzzle.
Correct, and I also wanna say that we've been able to fund some of the rural community projects with the EDA money. So they're not lost in the system. Wherever we can figure out a program that's gonna work, we figure out the program that's gonna work, so.
I think we just
EDA.
want language that shows the intention.
Yes,
And that there's recognition of it, so it doesn't get lost in translation, I guess, of the program.
So do we generally have support for moving in this direction from the board? Do we need to have further discussion or, other than, do we have
I think
further
we need
discussion
to.
about it? Okay.
Patrick,
I think we need a motion.
Oh,
Go ahead, Mark.
question?
Are we bound to any particular balance in our portfolio of the different loan types? And this one moving out isn't going to affect that, isn't the expectation or maybe the guideline we have?
So the great question too. All these questions are great. So we create targets in a sense, industries want to lend and populations we want to lend. But the flexibility is like this. I'm like an open door. I'm trying to capture whatever the banks aren't going to be able to lending on. So, specifically, you're saying, do we restrict or do we?
Are we bound to certain loan type in order to fulfill our portfolio availability?
No, it's based on need, and what's interesting, since I've been here, is that a lot of projects in the past were based in real estate. But as real estate's gone up, I see less of those. I'm seeing more equipment and working capital loans over the last few years, because those are the startup monies most of the businesses need. We don't have any portfolio, benchmarks like that. In a sense, it's supposed to be spread across the board, so we retain that flexibility to meet the need.
Okay, so I think we could retain or entertain a motion to,
One quick question,
Oh,
how
sorry.
much capital was freed? You said how much capital is gonna be freed up?
Well, I'm presenting a loan tonight that's gonna use some of that money, so,
Okay.
after if we move forward with that loan, I'll have over $600,000 of it, so.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So I will move to approve this COIC to pay off the loan for the IRP program.
Second.
any further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Great, I think the other, how do we want to deal with the rural focus? We've talked about that, but we want.
Let me
Patrick
work with
come
Patrick.
back with something for us, for
Yeah,
this
yep.
pool of, these pools of, 'cause essentially we now have the ability to create our own loan fund, right?
We do.
Right, this is freed up dollars, now it's ours to spend as we want, so you probably need some kind of policy for
I
that.
would like to see it built into the strategic goals.
And that is on the horizon. We have the opportunity to, and Patrick and I have had a number of conversations. The loan department, we want to look at what offerings we have, what the needs are, pull back together some of those, some of our partners that we've inquired previously, what are the gaps, what are the needs? So this wouldn't happen in isolation to all of that. It does though free up for this particular loan. But let's work offline as to how we can capture the intent of making sure that we don't lose the focus on rural.
So there's a couple loan funds, I think, right, already.
Yeah.
This may fit in something that we already do, so we may
Yeah,
not.
and we have a board working group that's been talking
Yeah,
about this,
so that's fine.
John, I think, gave part of it.
And one of the things that happens here is that, we've talked about focusing more on micro loans. Now, I don't have any set minimum loan amount. Most of our smaller loans, we want $25,000, and if they can move through, they qualify for that. But this opens up an opportunity to structure programs that are targeted for those smaller loan amounts, where in our other funding buckets, we were really limited in monies that were available for that. So that's.
So we
again,
can, yep, we can bring that back in November.
Okay, great,
Yep, November.
yeah. And Patrick, you're up for the next agenda.
Wasn't it just why two, do we vote?
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right by me. Okay, so presenting a loan tonight for 2M Development to create an RV park in Crooked River Ranch. There's a little diagram of, one of the pages of the design plans, so you can see what they're doing there. The loan amounts for $350,000 for construction and equipment and working capital. And as I put this together, not knowing where the board was gonna stand on this last motion, I had to structure this proposal under, let's say, the most conservative scenario, because it did qualify under the old USDA IRP, first one I've seen ever, okay? So I was able to do, it does that and it can do it another way, which is probably where we're headed here. So, some background here. So, there's 4 entities in this 2M development partnership, and Lynn and Brian Morgan are local people up here in Crooked River Ranch. They own the over the edge tap house. This is for the lot that they bought with their daughter and son-in-law that's next to the tap house. Okay, they purchased it a couple years ago, approved by Jefferson County to move forward for the design plans. And they're putting in 26 sites, 8 pull-through sites, 11 back-in sites, 4 tents, and 3, I want to say glamping teepee kind of sites that seem to be popular. So, what's happened here, these people are smart business people. We see all the traffic that's going down there in the summertime. All these RV parks are almost full all summer long, over demand. There was another one started up a couple years ago and they're full all the time. So their idea is, hey, let's add some more here, and it benefits the tap house. One of the things that we talk about in my loan proposals are how many jobs this create, what's the economic value to the community, okay? This is from an infrastructure standpoint, it adds value by having more capacity. From a job standpoint, for a $350,000 loan, probably a little bit on the skinny side. It's about 2.5 jobs targeted, for this one. That's with the park operations itself. But then you have to look at the ancillary services and how it's kind of blending over to Tap House is gonna need on more people realistically, and what the rest of the community down there is gonna need to support more people in the community down there. So the project's would be built on 1.25 acres that's owned outright, and this is their equity investment. This is how I'm able to get over that 25% hurdle, okay? It's the equity that they have in the property, which we can utilize. There's experience here with the owners, both as avid RVers, in discussions, they've traveled a lot. And also from the construction standpoint, Brian Morgan is a contractor that will be throwing in some sweat equity in this project. From that standpoint, the industry, it's a fantastic industry, as probably people know. RVs and campers are all over the place, growing all the time, hitting all age demographics. It's a big thing. And Crooked River, did I get the report? I think I just received a report from a real estate agent that there are gangbusters out there for what's happening growth wise for this kind of tourism aspect. Most of this business is done in the summertime. You know, there's a 4.5, 5 month window. In the summer, we're looking at probably 90% occupancy. In the wintertime, that's gonna be, you know, cut in half realistically, and that's in the projections here when we run these numbers. The park's gonna have, the spaces that I indicated, the pricing is, competitive pricing is basically the bigger units, like $52 a night, and then the back ends are like 45, and then 10 sites or less, and the glampers are like $95 a night for the DBs and things like that. There's all sorts of cool stuff. And they're gonna have restrooms there, so there'll be a building for that. What else can I say? So the loan structure is for $350,000, and it's really broken up into two pieces here. One's a construction piece, and the other one's a working capital piece. Working capital would be things like marketing, setting up the websites, getting people hired, all that stuff, infrastructure to start businesses going. That's what we use working capital for. And there's some equipment involved too, in the working capital side. But I have this loan structured in 2 phases. One phase is the real estate side, and that's a 6.5% fixed term loan. All our loan programs are fixed rate loans, and there's no prepayment penalty. That's standard. We always have a 1.5% origination charge built into our stuff, kind of pays for things, and believe me, other costs come up that we end up having to take out of that. Plus, they always pay document costs. Most of those documents are done internally. There is some attorney reviews on things like the trust deeds and some of these other items, and credit reports, title insurance, things like that. We've got those pass-through costs, including appraisal. So the loan set up at 6.5% for the real estate. We typically write real estate between 20 and 25 years on these programs. That's an amortization. But we decided that it makes sense to keep the revolving loan fund revolving, that these loans are due and payable in 10 years. Think of it as a balloon. The whole idea of our loan programs is to get people to bankability, how to get them bankable. So we don't want to have these loans forever. We want to get the cycle through, so it gives them time to establish themselves, have the numbers if they decide to refinance, or if they don't pay off the loan.
Patrick, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So it is amortized out over what, 25 years, but it's
Doing a balloon intent.
balloon intent, okay.
Balloon intent, thank you. And since this is a construction project, we don't do let's say interest reserves, which you would typically have on a construction project. It's just like everything's lumped in, and they don't make payments. But we've always set up our loans historically where there are payments involved. Okay, I kind of like that idea too, keeps people on track. But we write 6-month interest only, and 6 months is the timeline to complete this project, if not sooner. Just to let you know, this project, part of it would be started soon. A lot of it's not gonna start till next, January, February. It's not gonna be weather dependent. The second part of the loan is the working capital side. I'm proposing we We're over 7 years at 8.5%. 8.5%'s been our rate basically all year. And even though the Feds made their move, rates didn't go down in our world. I had a conversation with Matt earlier about how we looked at rates. John, we had this conversation too. If we're headed towards a matrix, if we, scale of something, every community around the state that does what we do does it differently. Okay, they all do it differently. What we do is I pull the loan committee, I pull the bankers that I work with, referral basis. I talked to Dan Stagg, at Oregon. I talked to the banks. This was a referral, by the way. So we don't compete with banks, as people need to understand. We do the bank fallout for loans that the banks can't do. So this was a referral from the bank. Loan committee looks at all this information, decides to move forward to us, and I present it to you. So the second part again would be an 84-month or 7-year loan, 6-month interest only, give them time to get up and running. So the total of this all ends up being $350,000. The key points when we look at loans, they come down to the ability of the project or to pay the loan. Okay, it's called debt service, the service of the debt. So on this one, I look at projections, newer business. I'm looking a couple years out. We're trying to determine how realistic is this? What are the variables? What can happen? And some businesses, I gotta tell you, the fly is still bouncing around. Some businesses, the projections have to roll back. Sometimes I didn't know. But we look at cash flow is king to pay back the loan. The banks target 1.25 as a minimum for a deal to make sense. And we look at the historical financials for that, plus the futures. COIC in our loan programs, we've always leaned towards projections. Understandably, it's what we do in community economic development lending. This particular project will hit a 1.4, which is above the 1.25. But I can tell you this, we've seen it in the past, we'll see it in the future. I might be presenting loans that'll cash flow at like 1.05 in the first year. And then we want to see it get to 1.25 though, by second year.
And that's the 1.4, 1.5, that's including the the slow seasons, correct?
Yeah, that's a total cap. It's annualized.
Okay.
It's annualized. And then on second year, things are kicking in, and of course, it'll be upscaling. So we look at that cash flow, the ability of the project to pay the loan. Second thing we look at, and their property owned outright really made this work, or makes it work, is their equity investment. We call that debt to work. Okay. I can tell you this is happening right now in the market I'm at, that a lot of businesses that are approaching me have no equity in their business. It's a real tragedy, but it's the nature of what's happening right now with cash flow and how the business is changing. And a lot of them are financed by debt, and the money they make goes right out to pay their house bills. Okay. This project, one of the beauties about this project is there isn't any income that's needed from the project to pay for anybody's household expenses. I've got, 4 bowers here, they're doing fine. So it's a building machine, like they built their tap house, which they owe so little on in the last 5 years. It's amazing what they're doing. By the way, the tap house is for sale for $1.5 million. And if they sell it, it's long to probably get paid off.
I know you're aware you might be able to get a loan.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how the financial analysis works. I bring this to a loan committee, and there were five out of our seven members. We're on the loan committee. I present the loan to them, and they make a recommendation back to me, so I can bring it to you. But we really kind of go through a grill on the numbers. In this particular one, I mean, like 15 pages of financials and narratives and stuff like that. Sometimes these things end up being 22 pages or something, but that's my feet to the fire, so to say, of having all my ducks in a row, because they pose a lot of questions. And we always have a minimum of 2 bankers on the committee. We had 4 this last time, four. Which I count Lisa Kyle as a banker because she used to be the COIC Board. Okay, so important conditions on this loan, and this is the nature of these kind of projects, is the appraisal still being done. These appraisals are about a 4-week sequence for order to completion. 5 in this particular case. Bratton Appraisals, very qualified appraisal service that we use. So we have conditions on this loan that are very important. One is that the appraisal hits a minimum number, and I have that in here, $467,000, and that would be the number that would make it work from an equity standpoint wise for any loan partner is what this under. We expect it to be higher than that anyway. The other main condition, there's other conditions too, by the way, that don't make it here. But the other main one is that Northwest Risk Monitoring would be doing the construction, basically project management from a draw standpoint. So the way these construction loans work is the contractor says, I got this ordered and I got this done, pay us. And then I go to Michelle, writes a check for $80,000 and then we ship it over, get things paid. We get lien releases, make sure things get paid. Next draw comes. So the Northwest Monitoring would be involved in this one. The borrower pays for that, where they do site inspections, give us completion schedules, where they are in the completion. They kind of bring me up to speed. Plus, I'll be going out there to do things too, to make sure things are showing up on the site, et cetera, if they want to draw on that. But those are the two real key elements on this project, are the appraisal and then that we involve the construction management team. Smaller items, some personal debt was paid off, but just need some receipts. Building permits, of course, but the project is approved. So there's things that come in line, and realistically, even with this loan approval, the construction side won't even fund for 4 weeks, realistically, if it even funds that soon. Okay. So that's what I have here. Are there any questions?
Sorry.
No, that's good.
Thank you for bringing this to
Yeah.
us and all the work you've done into it. Can you talk a little bit about, like, normally for a commercial loan, there's environmental studies that are done to underwrite this.
Yeah.
And so what does your process look like for that side of it to mitigate the risk to the lender?
Yeah, great question. So there are a number of I want to say steps that could be involved. This is raw land. I'm going to keep that up to the side. If we did a project for My Lucky House, High Desert Property Services, a couple years ago during the pandemic, I needed what was called a phase one, because there was a building on it, the usage, we weren't sure what was happening, it'd been there for a while, other things were going on, so we do phase one. If phase one recognized something, there'd be a phase two. In this particular case, I started on the smaller side of that, which basically becomes a questionnaire about the history of the property. We go to the county and we also say, what's the history of the property here? So what we see here is that this has basically been raw land, undeveloped, untouched. And there's no, what do I say, environmental standouts that it's affecting it. It's far backing up in the river, et cetera, like that. So those phases come into play based on information that's developed.
Yeah.
And on this one, there wasn't anything to take it to a higher degree.
I can keep going.
Oh, yeah.
Good, yeah.
Okay, so do we know why they weren't approved from a traditional bank?
Yeah, so a great question. So new businesses have a much higher threshold of getting approval for banks, okay? I can tell you this, real estate projects right now, longer term commitments. This is what I'm seeing, the people I work with. So I'm networking with the bankers all the time. Okay, we're talking, what do we got? What do you got? Can you help me with this? I can help you with that, et cetera. They are I'm seeing they're hedging away from this. And this was referred by a bank. They didn't want to do it, put it in their portfolio. I talked to another bank and a credit union, and I said, hey, by the way, is this something that you'd even do? No, I don't have an appetite for that right now. So, various reasons. One, portfolio balance that the banks might have doesn't fit in. They're kind of shying away from things because they're not sure about certain things. That's kind of where we come into play and we get busy. This is my busy season's just starting. Honestly, it's kind of what's going on. Did that answer your question?
I think as best as I could.
Yeah, as best as I could.
Okay, final question.
Okay, yeah.
I guess I don't know what the policy is, or if there is one, on how the money is used, right? If we've got a capped amount that can be deployed for economic development, and this sounds like a great project for all of the reasons that have been outlined here, I'm trying to do the math in my head to think how many jobs does this create in the area? And it appears it's a vertically integrated project with the parents being the contractors. And I would say that's.
Well, no, they're not the contractor.
Okay,
So another
so the
con-
sweat equity was,
Yeah, they participating on that level, that was key to this deal.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
okay,
that's too close,
okay,
that's too close.
yeah, and so then. So if we look at it, this money gets deployed into jobs in the community, is there a way to quantify that, or have we ever done that, or is that even appropriate? It's more of an ignorant question.
No, it's a great question. Okay, so a couple things happen are, one, there's a new, I'm gonna put EDA, talk about EDA loan program, because they're very job specific, some of their guidelines. I had, our old guideline from 5 years ago was for every $30,000 in aggregate, try to create a job. I talked to EDA and I say, this is Bend, Oregon, and this is 5 years later. Realistically, I'm gonna be submitting something for $90,000 or $95,000 per job. Patrick, that's right up the alley of everybody else right now. Okay, so jobs per dollar lent are getting more in line, and 2.5. In a perfect world, this was 3.5 or 4, but there's that carryover to all the, how it's gonna affect the community. And then, what was the other part?
I think that was it, just.
Okay.
Feedback and comments on how do we measure, or do we even, is it
Yes.
necessary job creation for how the funds are deployed?
So, USDA wouldn't care, in a sense, they don't have it from a reporting standpoint. EDA, I file reports with the EDA on one program once a year, on their other EDA, RLF, I file it twice a year. And I go out 2 years, and that's fine with them. I talk to the employees, the owners, how many employees they have. Patrick, I went up, I went down, I went up and went down, and I filed a number. And what's interesting is that, like, they care, but they understand there's flexibility and there's variance, so.
Is your question whether we as a program would be connecting a certain amount of the investment to a certain job creation? In my mind, when I've chatted with Patrick, we had an old business loan program at the county, and you received X amount of dollars for every job that you were able to build. And then, or bring on, and then if you retain them for a certain period of time, then the dollars became a grant, and there were just a variety of ways. Is that where your brain's going?
And
Thank you for
A little bit.
articulating what I didn't know how to say.
Nope, you
Yes.
did it really well,
That's
yep.
And
And
it's
how does
also-
it apply to this project?
And it's also,
Yeah.
it's also measured in aggregate, and that's so important to understand.
Yeah,
And
okay.
as an example, a couple years ago during the pandemic, Sierra James Construction Company, water mitigation, they did other things like that, they couldn't get a loan. And I think we lent them about $160,000 or $180,000 flow. They were able to hire like 12 people in like a year and a half.
Yeah.
They actually, more than that, they paid off the loan, got an SBA loan. So some projects, I'll knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
Other ones are just gonna be slimmer. That's just kind of the nature. of it.
It's beyond jobs though, so it's economic benefit.
Yeah.
So you look at this and it's an RV park, maybe it has 1 or 2 employees, right? If you're just looking at employees, okay, it's low value, but when you look at the economic impact of the Crooked River Ranch Golf Club is going to get a tremendous amount of traffic from this RV park. The 3 different restaurants and bars that are down there are gonna get a tremendous amount of economic revenue from this RV park. You look at the bleed over effect of the city of Redmond to Smith Rock to, when you have, how many spaces was this again? 20 spaces that are gonna be, and I know the other 2 RV parks that are down there already in Crooked River Ranch, and they are packed. They're at capacity all summer. So the bleed over effect to all the different forms of the economy, for a project like this needs to be taken into consideration.
Well, and there,
Tax revenue that Jefferson County's gonna.
I always reference an old, employment study that I think Portland State did, but it ties to Burns, and so Burns to me ties to Culver. And it was basically for every job created in Burns, it was like creating hundreds of jobs in Portland. So back to your, Culver's a small community, and or Crooked River Ranch, small business deal, and again, for every job created there, that's like creating dozens of jobs, I expect, in Bend or some other place. It's,
And back to a little bit of history of the USDA IRP program. That was less job focused and more infrastructure focused in creating projects that would elevate the stature or the capacity of the community as a whole. So thanks for bringing that up. And so we vary all that together.
I think this is important though to take back when we're looking at refreshing our loan offerings. Having some guiding principles, because I think it's important for us to be transparent. What have we considered when we are lending public dollars? And so as we're thinking, is there value in that economic development and other pieces to it? That's a really strong guiding principle that would be taken into consideration. Maybe it's a different job where it isn't quite as big on that side, but it's really big on the job side. And so maybe it's the consideration of some guiding principles that we could be using and that it fits in. I'm just throwing that out as an idea because I hear you. Some use it as how many jobs has it created because we have the local job creation fund.
Right.
And even that one, how many jobs are you creating? What's the target? Do we know we're successful? We might want to develop that with the board and then you would know what we're using in terms of the mechanism for decision making. That's outside of what's required.
so, and this is a project that actually creates dollars in a different way.
Exactly.
Because it's a overnight stay.
Right.
And I suspect these folks are gonna be paying.
Do they do the tier?
Yeah.
The little housing.
Hotel, motel, and so those have secondary benefits that get scattered throughout Jefferson County. Well,
We're gonna have more flexibility on this.
I think we need to be all encompassing when we look at these different qualifications though, and just look at, okay, what's the overall economic? Is it the job creation? Is it the overflow effect of other businesses? Well, I don't know if we need to have things completely written out, but we just need to keep that in mind as we go through this. And what is this program for? But it's for the benefit of our communities. And what does that look like? Is it jobs? Is it, so.
Economic development.
Absolutely. So we just.
Making money flow.
We want to be careful about getting too narrow or too many things that make it difficult to actually get the money out.
I was not trying to create more work and I have no further comments or questions. Thank you.
So in the interest of time.
Yes, more questions, please.
Okay, Mark,
Go ahead.
Go for it.
The project, you say, but we've got the project, they've got the tap house for sale.
Yes.
Now, the price of the tap house doesn't include the projected completion of this project.
No, completely separate.
Okay.
But however, we, in our analysis, we wanted to make sure that the tap house was self-sufficient, so we did, some preliminary analysis on that. Structure financially, make sure that wasn't gonna be an encumbrance or distraction or anything like that, so keep going.
They pay it off, is there early paid off?
None of our loans have prepayment boundaries, and that's a good thing.
Any other questions for Patrick?
Is the land use an outright use in that zone, or is there some land use associated with this?
Are you gonna be over my head? I think.
The documents.
Jefferson County approved it.
Yes.
Oh, it's been approved.
I
okay.
spent that on your behalf, because
Yes.
I thought if they have.
I know,
the
think of
land
where we
use,
live in.
oh my goodness,
Yes.
that could tie them up.
Well, then how long are the stays? Is this like a 5 max or 10 max, or can you stay year round?
Oh, in the winter time, they're gonna be doing monthly rentals, I think, for
Yeah.
after the two or 3 months or something.
There's
That,
opportunity.
and then
longer
I think there's like a week, we expect people to stay like, 2-3 nights, but then sometimes.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Patrick, and noticing that, the 2M development, since it's newer and they paid cash for that, they don't have the business credit established. And how does that weigh in at all? Usually you hear like, well, you're not gonna get a loan if you don't have any credit scores to report, but. So how does that play here?
Couple things, so, COIC lending, we don't really have minimum credit scores. But credit scores can be reflective of somebody's credit character, okay? Newer companies, a lot of times they don't have reportable credit, like down at Brand Street, because they don't have accounts payable with vendors that are reporting. So we run it, there's nothing there. What we look for is to see if there's any obligations that are showing, because there's a lot of audit trails that we after this process. I'm auditing personal financial statements against taxes, against
credit reports and all these things come into play to say, yeah, this is real. Sometimes people aren't gonna play fair. So we ought to do this. So it doesn't discount their ability to get along because they don't have credit. It's just because if the entities formed like this won't have credit unless they borrow money to buy land. So.
Okay, and then I saw that the loan will be secured with a lien.
Yes, first trustee on the property, and I don't think we'll ever be running an RV park, which is good. But we could, actually, it's a business, I mean, I had to learn about the businesses to go, like.
So that's unrestricted revenue.
Yeah, yes.
And as we're taking first position on this project, I'll let you know too, that many times we'll be in second position and, you know, COIC's lending, providing loan funds are to be in second position to get somebody over the finish line in conjunction with a bank or credit union financing this position.
So I'm just gonna point out the time, it's 10:07, we have 2 more agenda items to go, so is there any burning questions or are we ready to move on?
Do you need a motion to approve this?
We do need a motion though.
I would to approve the COIC loan of not $2 million to 2M Development LLC for $350,000 from revolving loan funds administered by COIC.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gabe?
Aye.
Alright, great, okay,
Thank you very much.
anybody opposed? I don't think so, great, thank you, Patrick. It's exciting to see that finally getting out the door. Oh, yeah. Okay, Ron.
Bob Townsend, Cascades East Transit Director, so I can be as fast as you want, or as slow as you want. And I don't mean to go fast on a safety topic, but at the same time, a safety plan should be driven by the employees and by the department, and, you know, the board has oversight ultimately, but this was created in conjunction with our.
I had another chapter I wanted to add.
What chapter?
Wow. I'll take it under advisement. So, again, just kind of like Title VI, this is Public Transit Agency Safety Plan, PTAS, or Agency Safety Plan in our case, because we're smaller, but we changed the words or the acronyms around to meet our use, because we're a little bit bigger in what we want for a safety plan, but required by FDA. We're an urbanized area, population less than 200,000, which is a transit cutoff. So we're the smaller. Next slide. Please, thanks. We just go down a checklist basically for these type of things. There's a lot of guidance on what a safety plan should look like and things like that. FTA has a 14-page checklist on everything that has to be included, and then you're allowed to include others. So we've had this vetted through our FTA auditor. We had a plan last signed in 2021. There's been so many changes here the last year. At CET with myself, we have a safety program manager now. We have a CET specific safety committee, just a new emphasis on safety all around that we've kind of redone our plan. It includes everything from, you know, what are the things we do, metrics, how to report accidents, risk management, training requirements, and on and on. Next slide. So just, you know, how FTA requires frontline transit workers and representatives cooperate in development of the plan. So our new safety manager, Kelly Cox, has been meeting with different individuals. I've been meeting with them, you know, just getting some key points in how we want to update it. We've discussed this at our CET safety committee. Like I said, just a new emphasis on safety elements here since I got on, and just getting up to where we should be. And like I mentioned, we also had FTA consultant review this, so it meets all compliance needs. What I did want to highlight, and certainly I'm happy to bring this for you every time, and maybe you can't see this, but this requires my signature, requires approval by the board here for a signature. And then moving forward, we're going to track changes, and we're going to have changes every couple months, just with some of the growth, some of the change in Bend and things like that. And so what I'll do in the future is I'll summarize the changes. And this is, a lot of times you'll see a safety plan that has 100 things like this already. FTA allowed us to reset since we had so much new this year. And so we're starting, this is our official plan, hopefully approved tonight. And then whether it's consent agenda or I'm happy to talk here, you know, we're gonna have updates in January, February, March of next year, just based on some of the changes. And so that's where you'll see these, like, certainly you can read the full plan anytime, but I'll highlight what those changes were each time that require board approval. So motions, I do need you to go with the second one. Update is revised, because on page 14, we had a little version error. And we used to, or Tammy was the signature back in 2021, but it should be someone who's directly responsible and in control of everything. And so on all these accountable executives for transit will be me in the future. Not that Tammy's not in control, but it's just, it should be a frontline or closer person. So that's a correction on page 14. It's written my name in a couple other spots, but we missed one.
Anybody have questions for Bob?
This might be a record for me to be out on the judge. I don't know.
The document talks about COIC's procedure, updates, management. Is it Cascade East Transit or is COIC the entity?
COIC, the way of our FTA reviews is the entity, yeah.
So Federal Transit Authority, FTA, you said?
Yeah, or administration.
Administration, yeah. But yeah, so COIC is the.
Yeah,
is the
everything,
registered
yeah, I
entity.
mean, we try to usually go
I'm trying to figure,
COIC.
can we get a C?
We go COIC/CET, but for the way we're structured right now, we're not a standalone, yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
But. Also, can come up
Do
with.
we have a motion to approve?
You almost didn't have any questions.
I know, Amy.
So move. Okay, move, do I have a second? Second. Second by Marv, all those in favor? Aye.
I,
This time, Dave,
Aye.
great, okay. Megan, you are.
Right. Okay, don't have a fancy presentation or anything, but you'll see in your memo on the very last page. We are requesting approval to be the lead applicant on a new grant. It's the Department of Land Conservation Development's Community Green Infrastructure Program. This grant will support the planting of native trees and landscaping that is considered green infrastructure on site at Oasis Village in Redmond. They have some site needs, some needs on site. We're gonna focus on planting trees along the fence line that lines Highway 126 to help with both shade and noise reduction, as well as just putting more native plants in the landscaping that are drought resistant, don't use a lot of water, that sort of stuff. And we're gonna be partnering with Heart of Oregon Corps as well to help do a lot of these plantings, which will be a great partnership, and similar to other programs that we already have. As well as City of Redmond has been a great consultant on this project, and their staff will be supporting with just technical advice and that. So, yeah, do we have any questions from folks? We have a little hitch in the giddy up in terms of the requests, and so I will go ahead and take that piece. We originally put in 250,000 up to in terms of the ads, but we're not entirely sure because this is one of those situations where it's asking approval to apply for a grant that is due before your next meeting, and so they're currently continuing to refine what the ask is. And so they're looking for the ability to go up to a certain amount. And so we would be the lead applicant, if we were in partnership, we can request up to 500,000. And that is over about an 18-month period, did you say? Yeah, I doubt we'll need that much, but we just don't know exactly what the budget's gonna be. Yeah, so I'll leave that with the board is in terms of what.
So
flexibility.
potentially the motion would just be amended to say up to $500,000.
And knowing that it doesn't change the match requirement, No. there's none of that, it doesn't change really anything other than that's what our partners believe that the project is going to take to fulfill the obligations in which they are committing to.
So it could be more than 50, probably not 500.
Yeah, you were guesstimate around maybe 3. Yeah, I just wanna give us the breathing
Yeah,
room while we get in our estimates and that sort of stuff.
My one question is, if COIC is the grant administrator, do those admin costs, will they be covered by the grant itself?
Yeah, so
we met and talked about this today, and likely we'll just charge very few hours for somebody within CED staff as well as our fiscal administrator to process that, just grant reporting and then cutting the checks to the sub-grantee partner.
Because you will recoup some of those.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
So
I encourage you to
as
ask.
a reviewer of these kinds of grants, this proposal really has a lot of black holes, which makes me sort of uncomfortable saying, sure, go apply for 250,000. Because you talk about plants, you talk about drought tolerant trees. Well, the only drought tolerant tree I know in Central Oregon is a juniper tree. So if you're not talking about juniper trees, you're actually talking about vegetation plus the infrastructure to make that vegetation successful. So that's an irrigation system of some kind. You don't talk about irrigation at all. You just say, we're talking about droughts. And I'm thinking $250,000 for 24 trees, because it's Oasis Village is not a big footprint. So you're not gonna plant a lot of trees. And I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, 24 trees. That's a lot of money for 24 trees. So the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
You're now talking, well, it could be more than $250,000. And I'm thinking, holy smokes, you know, what are we spending to turn a place a little bit of green and whatnot? And so
Do you want to add
Yeah.
some context?
Yeah, so just want to acknowledge, I'm not a landscaping expert, so I don't come in with, that strong background of understanding exactly what the costs are. So I appreciate your input on that. We're working with folks like landscape designers who specialize in native plants and all that sort of stuff to get a better cost estimate. We'll have that before we apply. So that's where I'm coming from in terms of this ask. And also, this is a very, very, light overview of the grant. We're planning on including a funds request for irrigation installation as well, and then a maintenance plan too, to make sure that those trees take and everything is solid.
So what, give me a little, it's not a little ignorant here, but explain Oasis Village to me. I mean, I know a little bit about it and everything, but what is its active role and what are the plans for Oasis Village in the future? Long term.
So, also not a representative of Oasis Village, I can only speak to like our partnership on this project, maybe some other folks in the room could. But they're very involved with wanting to make the space more welcoming to folks, and
So what is it currently being used
Oasis Village.
for? Correct.
I can take that.
Go for
from
it.
So, right at the edge of 126, it's a micro shelter village with a common building and kitchen, laundry services and support services. So I think there was like originally 15 units and they've added another 10 or something like that. So there's like 25 of them units. And it's fenced in, it's finished off really nice. It's kind of built with the best information of the time. But little tiny shelters for people that are long-term unsanctioned camping and looking for somewhere to be.
So is this going to be, because we've already talked about sustainability issues with some of these programs. What do you think? I mean, this is a big investment. When you're talking $250,000. What are the long-term? Is this a place that's going to be around 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Or the investment in trees?
Well, yeah. I think, there's a day of reckoning about the cost of doing business for facilities like this, but there's also an opportunity. I mean, if we turn the corner and people wanna be able to invest in where they live, or there could be recurring revenue. But it's a low barrier right now, which means nobody's even asking that question.
For the first 90 days, and
Yeah,
then it becomes, then they step into the second part of the program. It's not heavily reliant on the state funding that currently is dwindling. So they've got a lot of community support and nonprofit, they have a nonprofit status. And so their fundraising and their church community and they've really diversified a lot of their funding.
I think it's also want to point out that this is adjacent to what will be the core 3 site. And so this will kind of help to beautify some of that area.
Yeah, I drive past it. I know where
Yeah,
that.
so-
When you're on the way to.
we have the
Yes.
fire scar. So,
Is that?
It rehabs a fire scar.
There you go.
It's a good question though. And Heart of Oregon sees it as an opportunity to be able to get the youth out there doing work that's in service to others that are
Yeah.
also working to better their lives. And so there's a contribution in that piece. City of Redmond would love to have it more pretty, make it
Yeah.
prettier, make it more attractive. Right now it's as you drive by, it's a little dull. And
chain
so
link
it's
fence.
a chain link fence, exactly. So,
Help.
it's tan though, I mean, so,
Boulders in front
but
of
it is that area has been identified by the community of Redmond as a space that would have a fair amount of these types of offerings in terms of alternative living environments. And so I think this, hence the city of Redmond's interest in utilizing our team and their skill set. She's really the wrangler of the conversation.
Yeah.
She takes all of their feedback and then puts it into a package and then makes magic happen. Right, well, it makes magic happen to try to be able to receive the dollars. And then the partners are the ones that are accountable to making sure that they do what it is that they said they would do. She has the ability to say you're out of compliance, and then we have mechanisms to deal with that. But yeah, great question in terms of.
Yeah, my biggest concern is, I know that these are, some of these projects that are going on are almost short-term fixes because there's an overflow of money that's happening right now, how it's happened for the last couple of years. Does the community have an appetite to continue this project into the future, to keep this project going in the future? If not, it's not a good investment.
Yeah, I think
If
Oasis
so, then
Oasis Village
okay.
is something that the people of Redmond look to as a success story. I mean, it really is a great kind of combination of kind of that public-private partnership where Jericho Road stepped up and said, hey, we want to start to build this. That kind of turned into the Oasis Village Board, which, with help from the county and the city, and so we made some real investments. And I've been out there, I've talked to those folks that are out there, I've taught some financial literacy classes to those folks. Their issue is not that they don't have a high success rate, it's that the people that are there have difficulty graduating because they can't move into affordable housing. And so that's kind of where that bottleneck is that missing middle housing issue. So this is a program we actually can point to and say, yes, this is a high success rate for the industry, I guess is what it's.
And community supported.
Yeah,
It's not particularly dependent on the money.
No, it got started well before.
Yeah, sure. It's one of the early success stories about doing these kinds of setups.
They've expanded with some of the funding, but they're not, that it doesn't raise my blood pressure as some others do.
Is DLCD, is this a federal grant that is being applied for?
It's the state of Oregon, yeah, the state of Oregon's Department of Land Conservation Development, got funds to run this.
Good call out though.
So tied to that, is this a one-time shot? This only time DLCD's ever offered this? Is they offer it quarterly? Is it every year at this time of the year?
Yeah, so, from my understanding, this was legislatively appropriated dollars. It seems like a one-time grant program from my understanding, unless the legislature comes back and says that we wanna fund it again. But they had one-time funds to do this, but this is the second round that it's open. And final,
Second and final.
yes.
Could you do some research on what kind of vegetation might be used in this? And could you get together with the city of Redmond and Deschutes County to see longevity of this? I'm joking. Listen, it's your first time up here. We can't make it easy.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, I know.
Scott.
Tim was asking if you're the new Scott, and I was like, great job. Nicely done.
These are listed drought-resistant trees provided by Redmond City Arborist.
Well, there you go.
Fine, if you wanna throw that.
I think we have a question or comment from Councilor Solis. Go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, thank you. I think this has been great discussion, but I think that really there isn't much of a financial impact to COIC. And so to the impact on the decision that COIC board needs to make on this is whether or not we want staff to administer the grant and be the administrator on behalf of the other entities that are requesting it. So being the city of Redmond, Oasis Village, and Heart of Oregon Corps. having us be the administrator of that. Do we as a board want staff to do that? Yes or no, regardless of those other aspects, which I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with any of the discussion made tonight. I think they're all very valid points, but not necessarily relevant to our decision as a board related to the request before us. I don't see any harm in allowing staff to spend their staff time for this project. It sounds like City of Redmond is saying that this is something their community supports. And if we can help City of Redmond and the surrounding community with that desire, great. Whether or not it pans out or lasts long-term or any of the other aspects discussed is, I think, beyond the scope. That would be my own personal thought on it.
Well, and I think part of this is falls in line, I forget the name of the program, I know you just mentioned it here, but COIC's role of being responsive to local communities when they come and ask for assistance, both with getting grants submitted, right? But also to provide resources for needs in those communities.
Yes.
The administrator may be a second piece of this, and we've heard that we'll be able to cover most or all of those costs
Yeah,
by line items in the grant, so that's good for COIC, so.
Yes.
Megan, do you agree with what Councilor Solis and Councilor Riley said?
Yeah, I mean, that's most
Could you
of the,
expand on that a little?
that's most of the asphalt rate.
So are people with the limit, people okay
I'd
with
say-
going up to 500? Do you wanna set a different number? I think maybe we should give them a little more flexibility than 250 so that they can walk out of here and get good proposals.
I mean, it seems like a pretty simple process. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I don't think we need to set a number. You know, I can
Yeah.
come up with a proposal and it'll be probably less than the $500,000, so.
I would like to make a motion that we support the CED team to help the city of Redmond, the Oasis Village and the Heart Orion Corps apply for dollars to do landscaping at the
There
Oasis
you go.
Village.
I'll second that one. Yep.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Online?
Aye.
I will be aye as well. I just want to also throw out there that ensuring that we don't have any liability that comes along with that grant, just not seeing that grant application is the only thing that gives me any level of concern. I noted in the staff report, it said there's no financial impact as far as any matching dollars, which is good, but any sort of other obligations or liability that puts on the COIC, as long as we're very clear that that's passed on to City of Redmond, the Oasis, et cetera, in that application, I will be in favor of this.
And then we would work with them on an agreement, and in those agreements, we have a indemnification policy also that protects us another layer.
Wonderful. And can we get
Yeah.
this back just on like our consent agenda once it is applied for, just so we as a
Sure.
board can see that?
Yeah, and hopefully if awarded too. Yeah, it's due on the 13th.
Okay.
When do you find out?
I wanna say by February.
Anyway.
Yeah, please don't plant juniper.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Or not.
No sagebrush either.
Oh, no, I know, you're talking native plants, so you're gonna be planting sagebrush, you're gonna be planting rabbit brush, you're gonna be planting things that are.
Yeah.
native.
Maybe we
You
should
have
make that
water.
our talking stick for the future. Holding the life water for you.
Tammy's a little nervous.
Yeah, I thought she was happy.
She gave it to me, she said, kill it.
My mom used to have this thing about having the fly swatter on the counter at home, and I was.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. That, I mean, you can stand on the table, but don't have that on the desk.
So it's 7:32. I'm gonna call this meeting adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Great job.
I had a call.